Abraham. You know Abraham, don't you? Abraham had a nephew named Lot, and Lot was the quintessential knucklehead. Lot's eyes were always swollen when he saw material things. Lot was in the bling bling before there was a bling bling. And here he had his uncle Abraham, a righteous man, a godly man, and a wealthy man, and gave him everything that he needed. But Lot looked down at Sodom and Gomorrah and said, I can have more if I go down there. So he moved into Sodom and Gomorrah, took his wife in there, had children there in this filth and this cesspool called Sodom and Gomorrah, and Lot's righteous soul became vexed. So vexed that he lost his moral bearings. He became so spiritually disoriented and disillusioned that when the holy angels came in to Sodom to save Lot and to deliver Lot, and when the perverse, sexually immoral homosexuals tried to sexually assault the angels, Lot offered to give the perverts his daughters. That's in the Bible. And that's how bad the situation can become. And men with daughters are giving up on their daughters and basically allowing their daughters to be abused as sex objects. And we call ourselves men. We're cowards, is what we become. We become cowards. No other community will just stand by idly without trying to put up some type of resistance, without trying to do something to stop the onslaught of immorality. And so Lot had become so messed up in his head, and he still thought that he was living for God. And he was justifying his indifference and his apathy, and he was doing nothing to try to evangelize Sodom and Gomorrah. And if he was going to move there, what he should have become was the witness. Oh, I'm making this up. This is in the Bible. So when God's angels appears to Abraham and he tells Abraham they're going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham remembers that's where his nephew and his daughters and wife are. So Abraham starts to plead with God. He says, Lord, if you find 50 righteous people there, will you destroy the city with 50 righteous people there? And the angel says, no, we'll spare it. Abraham just concluded, surely Lot in all this time had won 50 people to the Lord. But then he remembered who he was talking about. And he said, what about 40? He said, well, if I find 40, we'll spare it. What about 30 if I find 30? What about 20? What about 10? And Abraham knew he was pushing his luck there. And the angel says, if we find 10 righteous people, we won't destroy the city for the 10. So y'all read the Bible too fast. Abraham's saying that we know Lot is righteous. His wife is righteous. He got 2 daughters. They both should be righteous. That's 4. His daughters have taken sons, husbands. That's 6. They only got to win 4 people. So Abraham says, surely they won 4 people. He says, if I find 10, we will not destroy for the 10. Well, you know the story. There wasn't 10 righteous people in Sodom. Wife's Lot wasn't righteous. She didn't want to leave Sodom. Lot's 2 homosexual sons-in-laws, they didn't want to leave Sodom. And Lot's own daughters, they had become so morally, sexually bent that after God delivers them from the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, they go in and have sexual relationships with their drunk daddy. And then they father children, and their children become the enemies of God's people. Become enemies of the people of God. That's why you got to deal with this. It's not this generation. This generation will breed the next generation of enemies of the people of God because they don't have the moral and the spiritual bearing to do what they need to do for their children. Am I making this simple? God, look, I am not a man that is given to hyperbole. People, I don't exaggerate. Let me tell you something. You could walk with me for a week. They got some of the most dangerous people right now locked up at the Salem Industrial Home for you. They're going to release back to this neighborhood and this community. As soon as they turn 18, they got a whole ward up there, a whole ward of sexual offenders, SOS is specific. They wear different uniforms when they're locked up. And they have sexually abused their brothers and sisters and people in the neighborhood as kids. But they weren't transferred to adult status, so they don't register sex offenders. And when they turn 18, they put them out. And they send them back in the neighborhoods. And most of the people that are raping people are people that raped people when they were juveniles. They didn't just start doing that when they became adults. That's what we're up against. And my worst nightmare, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope people just say, shut up, you're wrong. But my worst nightmare is this spirit of violence would trickle down to this next generation of 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old kids. The most lethal time bomb that you can have in your neighborhood is a young adolescent with a firearm in his back pocket. It can't be no more dangerous than that. With a loaded firearm in his back pocket. And we have so many guns out there, there's no use in passing no laws. I mean, there's no use in passing laws. You can't stop people from getting the guns. They're everywhere. I mean, they're sold everywhere. You can get them any kind of way. You've got to put something on the inside of folk. They got to have something in their hearts and something in their minds. Well, as best as I can keep a promise, I'm not going to worry y'all with this no more. Those who are interested can get involved, and those who not, then you do what you feel like God has called you to do. I'm not in any way belittling what is being done. But what I'm saying is that there has to be more people who takes an interest in trying to reach